live. I don't think I'd go live this week, but because I've been thinking about, some of the content that I've been posting, the live content that I've been sharing with you guys, and I did feel like, the content got a bit repetitive. So I thought to myself, do I really want to go live again? And I thought to myself, well, not, why not? So in terms of, what I want to talk about today, I want to talk about my LinkedIn lead generation strategy. So in 2026, it's going to be very, very important that you don't rely on referrals. It's going to be very, very important that you don't rely on word of mouth. Because if you want to grow your business long term, you do need a system that brings in clients. So it's very, very important to do that. But before I even get into my lead generation strategy, I do encourage you to hit the like button. It really does help out the stream, to go out to more people who might be interested, in what I have to say. Or maybe if they are using LinkedIn and they want to grow their business, this could be very, very helpful. So it's free, by the way. Also, please do subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Also, when you do subscribe, also try and turn on all notifications because I'm someone who watches a lot of live content, whether it's football, politics, or whatever, because I'm always someone who's learning a lot. I often find that the creators often talk about, people subscribe, but sometimes they get notifications very, very, very late. I mean, and sometimes if they're going live right now, sometimes they can get someone who subscribed to their channel can get a notification 5 6 hours after they've gone live, which isn't necessarily that great. So yeah, definitely do hit the like button, definitely do subscribe, and yeah, do all of that good stuff as most YouTube creators say. But yeah, one of the things that I really want to talk about today is, like I said, my LinkedIn lead generation strategy. One of the things that's very, very important if you're someone that's using LinkedIn is to have a repeatable system that you can use to bring in clients, because I have a lot of conversations with prospects and people within my audience, because I do have a newsletter where I share a lot of strategies and ideas. But sometimes when people get back to me, they often tell me the same thing, that their content and their lead generation strategy isn't necessarily bringing them any clients. So it's very, very important to have a a system that works in order to bring in clients. And with LinkedIn in 2026, it's going to be very, very important that you know what to say in terms of when you reach out to your ideal clients, and when to do it, because I've been hearing a lot of people talk about, sometimes if you are connecting with 200 people a week and you're sending out 200 messages, to the very same people that you've connected with, LinkedIn can sort of find you as spammy and can block you or remove you from the platform. So I'm going to be talking about those things more in depth. So yeah, you need a LinkedIn lead generation strategy. It helps you a lot in terms of, bringing in clients without relying on word of mouth, nor relying on um, referrals. So yeah, my LinkedIn lead generation strategy is quite simple. So I have a lead generation strategy for my content service, so my high ticket offer. I also have a lead generation system for my newsletter, because I also do encourage people to subscribe to my newsletter, whereby I can get their email, and I can also send them personalized emails. I can also send them frameworks, guides, nice things actually. So yeah, and I also have a lead generation strategy for my YouTube content. So in 2026, I'm going to be using these three platforms. I'm going to be using LinkedIn, I'm going to be using my newsletter on Beehive, and I'm going to be using YouTube. I won't be using Instagram as much because I've been honing in on Instagram this year, but I haven't necessarily seen any success. So for me, I'm not happy with my, the results that I've been getting on Instagram. So I'll probably not post anything next year when it comes to Instagram. I'll just focus on LinkedIn, YouTube, and my newsletter. So basically, it's a one-way funnel between LinkedIn, YouTube, and my newsletter. So my lead generation strategy for my high ticket offer, obviously I did wish that I was using StreamYard, whereby I can share my screen with my lead generation strategy, and my PDFs that I have in terms of how I reach out to clients, when do I reach out, what do I say, when when is the right time to make a pitch, when is the right time to, make the ask. And obviously I will share it in the description, my templates that you can use. And if it works for you, then perfect. You can also join my newsletter where I share an abundance of information on lead generation. So my lead generation strategy for my ticket offer is very, very simple. So what I do is on a weekly basis, I connect with 200 people a week, but I don't message more than 50% of those people. So basically, if I message 200 people, if I connect with 200 people a week, I'm sending out 100 messages. And the other 100, I can probably do it the following week. So every week, I have an extra 100 people that I can message during the week, because I don't want to put myself in a position whereby LinkedIn is looking at, the messages that I'm sending, and it feels like, I'm spamming people with my messages. So it's very, very important with your lead generation strategy that you don't put yourself in a position whereby, you're coming off as spammy with your messages that you're sending out. So yeah, with that being said, my lead generation strategy for my offer is quite simple. It is very, very simple. I don't spam people with, the same generic message template that a lot of people use. My system is quite simple. So basically, I connect with 200 people a week. I send out 100 messages in that week. So not more than 50% of, the people that I connect with. So my message is quite simple. So I basically say, hey, let's create a name. Hey, Alex, thanks for connecting. No sales pitch here. Just connecting with like-minded people. If you need my perspective on your LinkedIn content, don't hesitate to reach out. Now, that message is very, very valuable, and it gets a lot of responses because, one, I thank them for connecting, which is something that you should always do. Secondly, I took the pressure away from them, because sometimes when you send a message and an outreach message, sometimes you can put too much pressure on someone to do something for you, and you've just met them online, obviously. So I said no sales pitch here, which obviously drops their guard down. And I say, I just like connecting with like-minded people. So basically, you find familiarities between the both of you. And if you ever need my perspective, also I re-pitch, but it's not necessarily a pitch whereby I want them to do something now. So basically, I say, if you ever need my perspective on your LinkedIn content, because LinkedIn content is my expertise. Obviously, you're going to tailor it to what you do. So if you're in real estate, you'll say, maybe if you ever need my perspective on, you know, let's say, well, obviously, I don't know what people in real estate, well, I do know what people do in real estate, but in the context of sending a message, an outreach message, well, you'll probably say something like, if you ever need my perspective on, how to price your homes and whatnot, don't hesitate to reach out. So basically, you're putting your foot forward, but not in an aggressive way, and really it helps you. That message has gotten me a lot of responses. Even if the person might not be interested in what you sell, just the fact that you didn't put pressure on them in the first message, it gets you a response. So, and because the most important thing is to get a response. You need a response with your lead generation strategy. You don't want to sell in the first message. It should never be your intention to sell in the first message. The first message is to basically build that familiarity, to get your foot in the door, but not to pitch, not to sell, because you don't want to come across as someone who just spams messages. You're not necessarily driven by the desire to build a relationship, to offer value, and many of those great things. So yeah, that's my message. I'll also put it in the description so you know what to say and you can tweak it to what you do. So yeah, can I get a break, water? Water break, I mean. But yeah, that is my message template for reaching out to someone who's probably an ideal client that I want to work with. Um, but yeah, after I send a message to my ideal clients, one of the things that I like to do is I like to give them at least a day or two before I reach out back to them. And I say, maybe, also with that being said, I'm running an offer in January where I'm helping X person or this person, with their LinkedIn content. I don't know if you might be interested, but if you are, I've got this. I send them I send a link to a PDF whereby I walk them through what I would be doing, and I also give them something free of value, so that one, they know that I'm selling them something, but I'm also providing value. So it doesn't feel like they have to say yes to what I have to offer. So I like pitching, but pitching with value, so that it doesn't come across as I am I'm coming across as too salesy. That's not my intention. I don't want to come across as too salesy. But yeah, that's my strategy for when I reach out to, an ideal client that I want to work with. And then for my newsletter, I keep it very, very simple. So for my newsletter, I simply, the same 200 people that I connect with on a weekly basis, also including the people that, engage with the content that I'm posting. So if I'm posting something on a Tuesday and it gets about 10 likes and 15 comments, I'll reach out to those people and I'll say, hey, if you liked this, post, why don't you try out this framework? It really helped me a lot in terms of improving my engagement. Try it out for free. If you like it, you can subscribe and get even more information that's valuable. So I always entice them with value, not the idea that they're going to get something that even I can't probably deliver. And that's the biggest problem with a lot of people. Sometimes they can overpromise, but they know deep down it's very, very difficult to, deliver that result. I don't want to be a person who says, hey, subscribe to my this, you're going to get an abundance of information, you're going to get 1,000 followers. Well, my strategy could help you get an extra two or three followers. It could get you an extra client. It could get you an extra subscriber to your newsletter. I'm not here. I'm not, pitching these crazy results that I've not probably, achieved myself. I keep it very, very simple. I focus on what I can deliver, and I never overpromise because I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not good at. So yeah, that is my lead generation strategy for my high ticket offer. Obviously, if they don't answer your message, with your high ticket offer, the first message that you send, to build that familiarity, to build that awareness and relationship with them, you want to probably give them at least 2 or 3 days, and then message them back and say, hey, I'd still love to connect. Don't know what you're doing at the moment, but I think this could be very, very helpful if you're in the market to, well, not necessarily in the market, but if you're in the mindset of growing your business or whatever it may be. Always relate it back to what they're doing, what they want to be doing. And yeah, I think it's very, very helpful to always include value in what you do. Always include value in the message that you send. Don't come across as too salesy. Don't put yourself in a position whereby people don't want to respond to your message, because it puts a lot of pressure on them, to give you a response, or become a client of yours. You don't want to put pressure on a person to do that. So yeah. But yeah, let me know in the comments if you have any questions regarding your LinkedIn lead generation strategy. But yeah, like I said, I will share my lead generation strategy in the comments, and I'll also put it in the description so that you can use it and you can tweak it to your liking. But obviously, one of the most important things that I will encourage you to do is, with lead generation strategy, it's a very, very mundane task, sending the same message and just changing the name. But there's so much power that comes in just doing the very, very boring tasks, but they do deliver results, because sometimes I really do hate doing outreach, because I'm just copying and pasting the same message and just changing the name. but you do get responses, you do get people who might be interested, you do get people who might want to learn more down the line. It never hurts to ask. You don't want to be in a position whereby you think, because a lot of creators on LinkedIn, not necessarily the big creators, but the smaller creators, they often take the advice of the big creators too literally, in the sense that they get told to post a lot of valuable content, to create a newsletter, to do all these great things. But and then you get the on the other side of the aisle, it's always one extreme on the other extreme. So in I might just be talking shit right now, but I often find LinkedIn very, very interesting, because you often go from one extreme to the other, in the sense that sometimes you can sort of find yourself listening to the ultra positive LinkedIn creator who has 100,000 followers, averages about 300 or 400 likes, and 200 comments. So that person is you know a niche within themselves, and they're the go-to guy for whatever it is that they do. And they'll give you the ultra positive feedback or advice, and tell you that if you want to grow on LinkedIn, post 7 times a week, comment for 2 hours a day, and create a newsletter, offer value. If someone is interested in what you sell, then you can make the ask. But obviously, as much as that is value driven, and I would encourage you to do that in the beginning, it doesn't get you any closer to your first client. And one of the most important things that I found valuable is being very proactive. Being very proactive in the sense that I went for my first client before I posted 7 times a week. Because your first client is going to dictate to you what works and what doesn't work. Excuse me. So your first client is going to dictate what works and what doesn't work. So what not to waste your time on and what to waste your time on. So that advice is very, very great on the surface level, because it sounds like the right thing to do. But on the other extreme, then you get the other LinkedIn creator who's probably got about 80,000 followers, and they're averaging between 150 likes and 89 comments. And that person is just going to tell you to be that person is the Abraham LinkedIn of, see what I just did there? That person is the Abraham LinkedIn of outreach. That person is just going to tell you to just spam this outreach message, and track your conversion rates, track your messages, track who's responding, how they're responding. Are you filing them into some personality prototype to understand what type of buyer are they? So it's obviously one extreme and the other extreme. And sometimes you can get caught, sometimes if you're a reasonable person, you can be in the middle, understanding that I can probably find balance between delivering value and finding balance between doing outreach and being very, very direct. So obviously, one of the biggest things I will advise you to do is, don't be afraid to make the ask in the DMs. You will, I promise you, you will not lose a limb for asking if someone is interested in your service. If they're not, ask them why. Not necessarily in the sense that you're desperate for the sale, but you want to learn why they're not interested, so that you can probably fix it for someone else. So I often do this a lot, especially I did this in the beginning. You need to be very, very witty, if I might say. So when I got started, I didn't necessarily post 7 times a week. I was posting about 5 to 6 times a week. But even with that, I wasn't necessarily engaging a lot with people whenever my posts went live. So I wasn't a proactive creator on LinkedIn. I was scheduling the content and then going out to live my life. And then, if the content did well, then great. If the content didn't do well, well, it sucks. But, with that, I found myself in a position whereby I felt like the content became sort of a hobby and not a business. And when I started reaching out to people and finding out that, they may like my content, but they're not interested in my service, that was a real, you know, you know, knife in the back moment. So I really put myself in a position whereby I wasn't afraid to make the ask, because what doesn't hurt you doesn't build you. So yeah, that was basically it. I put a lot of focus on, I put a lot of focus on doing outreach, but sometimes it gets too mundane. Sometimes that I get bored, and sometimes I don't do it. But yeah, LinkedIn is by far the best platform you can use in 2026. And obviously, having shared my LinkedIn lead generation strategy, one thing I will advise you to do is, like I said, you don't want to spam people with your messages, because you don't want to put LinkedIn in a position whereby they see you as someone who spams a lot of messages. You don't want to be in that position. So do not do it. Do not waste your time, because you don't want to be blocked. And if you do get blocked on LinkedIn, even if you may ask them to revisit your situation, you're losing a lot of money each and every single week, because you could have hired another client if you probably did something completely different, or maybe if you are a bit more strategic. So don't overdo things in 2026, if I might say, because if you overdo things, you can sort of put yourself in a position whereby you could get banned, and that's something that you don't want. So yeah. Also, let me know in the comments what type of content you want to see going forward. Um, one of the things that I dislike about doing live content, especially about LinkedIn, sometimes I can talk about the same thing over and over and over again, that, even I sound less convincing than probably the last time I talked about, a similar thing. So LinkedIn is sort of like that. It's simply just optimizing your profile, posting valuable content, commenting whenever you get the time, doing outreach whenever you get the time. But obviously, the $1 million question is how to do it the right way. Obviously, I am sharing it with you. Sometimes what I share might not work, and someone else might give you something that could work. I'm not here saying that I have every strategy that works. Some strategies I also test. Some strategies work for me, some strategies don't work for me. So that is sort of, the conundrum when it comes to LinkedIn. Sometimes things don't work, and sometimes they do work. And if they do work, I'll be the first person to turn on my camera and tell you about it. So yeah, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask me. And yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Mm. Also, do let me know in the comments if this content is valuable, because I do like sharing a lot of valuable content. But even with that being said, sometimes the content can be a bit too repetitive, and that's one. Oh, sorry. And that's one thing that I dislike. I dislike posting content, and it can get a bit repetitive, and it's not as enjoyable. But in terms of everything that I've covered today, I think that's about it. I will make this YouTube live available for you as soon as I can finish the description, put in the links to the relevant information that you need in terms of doing your outreach. And if you also want to build a if you also need my LinkedIn outreach strategy for your newsletter, then obviously I will include that. But yeah, in terms of everything that I've covered, I think that's about it. I wasn't necessarily planning on going live because it's December, there's a long year ahead. This is probably the best time to take a break. But I thought to myself, I just go live instead. There's never a bad time to go live, and yeah, I did go live. So yeah. If you did like this, please let me know in the comments. If you have any questions, also ask me. If you have any, content ideas that you want me to talk about, I'm more than happy to do so. So yeah, I think that's about it. And yeah, I'll see you guys very, very soon. Thank you.